On the cover, Infantry and Lady Goliath flank a dais in a fancy bidding parlor where something no doubt expensive sits shrouded under a velvet drape. In the crowd we can see Eliza Highwire peering down the rows of bidders, past the human form of Derek the werewolf to where Norma tries to hide a small bag, out of which peeks the collar of the Silence's trench coat. Across the cover is splashed, "Can Eliza Highwire save the day? Can Infantry stop the dastardly schemes of Professor Paradox? Will Norma's secret identity stay a secret? Find out in this issue of Hindsight's Gold Era, Byzantium Clock."
Welcome back to Apex City Hindsight. This is the third and final issue of our Gold Era group, featuring Infantry, the soldier with bionicle limbs, Eliza Highwire, our high-flying acrobat with no superpowers to speak of or at all, and the Silence, radio star, Enigma, Norma. Last couple of times, we had a version of Professor Paradox explode into a dust monster, which then exploded into a Chaos Emerald. We had a lot of little pointed scenes with people kind of concluding with Professor Paradox once again making an offer to Infantry not to get in his way tomorrow morning at the opening of the Walter Gibson Collection. And today, we open on the morning of the Walter Gibson Collection. So, I guess my question here is, to start off with Infantry, what did you decide last night?
Oh yeah, I'm getting in his way.
Okay.
Beautiful.
He promised me to make my dreams come true, but Infantry feels very much like he can make his own dreams come true.
Hell yeah, that is beautiful. I love it. So, the Silence. We had kind of established that you thought this was worth looking into. So the question is, are you going to the opening of the Walter Gibson collection? And if so, who are you going as?
So the Walter Gibson, the opening for this is during the day, correct?
Oh, absolutely.
So I think what Norma does, and I also want to know if this is okay with you, I think Norma is going to try to ring the alarm bells, at least to Highwire, and also try to get to Infantry. She knows where Highwire is. Infantry's a little bit harder because she doesn't know where he stays.
So let's get that with Highwire then. How are you going to tip Highwire off?
I'm going to roll up to the circus at night as the Silence.
So as you get close to Simone Park, you do realize that it is just roped off. There's, police tape all over the place. There are a couple of guards posted. How do you deal with that?
Well, there's a couple of panels of the Silence, looking at the ropes, frowning, and then jumping up into the trees. So, he hops the ropes. He lets himself in. As
you head, I'm assuming, towards the circus tent?
Yeah, he impossible mobilities his way over to the direction of the circus and sort of, is, creeping and sort of, listening in on, what people are saying and trying to get where Eliza might be via context clues.
Okay. I think that is probably going to be an assess the situation, so go ahead and give me that superior roll.
Yeah. So that's an 8.
So go ahead and give me one question off that.
Yeah, what can I use to find Eliza? Let me find her.
So as you get towards the circus tent, you do see that there's a little standee set up that's got, where everyone's staying. There's only a couple of circus people around at this point because, as you can tell, the whole tent is still pretty busted up from, the dust monster's attack. It's still in repair at this point, but they are keeping track of where everyone is staying, so you can find, a little record book that has that in it, and you get a location for Eliza. Eliza, what kind of location are you staying at this point? Because you do technically have money should you want to access it.
But I'm not. Eliza
I'm
is
glamping.
Rip to everybody else who's rich, but Eliza is different. Eliza is a woman of the people. So I figure everybody is living kind of in, a tent city. And there's a pun there on circus tent and a real-life depressing thing that happens when people get displaced. So Eliza is kind of staying, with everybody else in kind of again, like Lee said, Eliza's kind of glamping. And she's staying with, two of the other acrobats I don't know, is it possible that Viv would be in a tent?
Oh, yeah, sure, but basically the Infernus is a family act, so they do stay together.
Okay, then never mind. I'm with some other people.
So yeah, you definitely know where Eliza is, you definitely know how to find her. Are you just going straight there?
Yeah, what I think this essentially boils down to is Eliza sort of hanging out in, like, the tent, and all of a sudden the silence sort of, like, Batmaning down behind her, and standing up, and holding out the newspaper clipping that mentions the clock.
Oh, Mr. The Silence. Are you here to see the circus with your?
He's gesturing more urgently with the newspaper clipping.
With your pass, your yearly pass, because the circus isn't running right now. But
he narrows his eyes and shoves the slip of newspaper like onto like her clavicle, like
the Byzantium clock, huh?
The Silence just stands up, cocks a hip, and, like, raises an eyebrow like, I'm gonna be there, are you? And then he Batmans away.
I didn't even get to ask him if he wanted to go to the malt shop with me.
So, yeah, that boils down into, like, those 3 panels, and then we see Norma, present day, at the opening for the clock, and she has a bag with her, and in the bag we can see, like, there's, like, a little x-ray panel of the bag, and we can see that she has, like, the coat sort of folded up in there with the hat. She's wearing the hat.
So you've got change of costume with you.
Yes, should the need arise, Norma is going to Superman it and just, like, dash into a phone booth or something and change.
So we do see in these panels as well a couple of other people. So first off, Infantry and Lady Goliath are here, both of whom are dressed in fancy suits and ties and white gloves. This is very uniform kind of guarding. We can see in the audience the normal human form of Derek the werewolf. And Eliza, I would like you to describe your dad for me.
Eliza's dad is very rich, and he lives in the 1940s, so he looks like a very rich person in history. What that means is, if you're picturing Mr. Monopoly, you're kind of right, except imagine Mr. Monopoly was very, very tall, and also shaped like an egg. So, like, if Dr. Robotnik and Mr. Monopoly had a child, and that child was rich.
That is beautiful. So that is Augustus van der Scheck, and he is sitting right next to Derek the werewolf and chatting sort of amiably at him. Derek is pretty bored by this. He is just politely, like, not turning into a werewolf right now. And Eliza, are you here, and if so, in what capacity?
Okay, I'm totally here, and Eliza is undercover as a socialite type, which I guess technically she is, because her dad is very rich. So Eliza is wearing dress clothes, not a dress per se, but wearing like a pantsuit. I don't know if that was a thing in the 40s, but it is now. And her hair is done nice. And she's kind of just walking around the party trying to, like, schmooze with everybody and see if she can kind of find out more information that way.
Okay, and I'm assuming your dad, you haven't, like, gone to say hi to him or anything, like...
Am I even aware that he's here?
Oh, definitely. I mean, looking like he looks and being as ostentatious as he is, absolutely.
Then, yeah, I'm sort of consciously avoiding him. I keep kind of, like, you know when you look the other, like, down and in the other direction whenever you pass by someone that you don't want to talk to, like that, whenever I happen to walk by.
At this point, the presentation proper sort of begins, and an older woman with a very, like, dark streak in her otherwise white hair. She's got little, like, pince-nez glasses on and, like, a severe sort of black pencil sort of dress. Comes forward and, like, very politely clears her throat, and all, like, the chattering in the room stops. And as she does, 2 large young men wheel out this big standee on which something is covered with a black satin cloth. And she announces to the room, recently imported from forgotten Sicily, the Byzantium clock. And they whip the cloth off of this thing, and what you see, and I'm actually going to right quick just drop an image into this, but I'm going to describe it for the people at home, is something that looks kinda like a funnel, but not really. So it's 2 pillars on either side of a bowl, and in the center there is an inverted cone into which water flows. And as it flows, it channels down these little grooves in the cone that are marked with symbols that we would know as numbers. The ones in the image are, Arabic numerals. The ones on this thing are definitely not. But as she goes on to explain, this was recently unearthed in a sealed chamber. And, ladies and gentlemen, I wish to inform you that the water you see flowing through this at this very moment is the very same that was when we found it. We don't know how it recycles itself, or from whence it came. None of us have yet, in fact, even touched it. The bidding will start at 30 million. At that point, obviously, Augustus van der Scheck, raises his hand, and the bidding starts, which in 1940s money, 30 million is a fucking lot. This is also the point at which I would like at least one of you, and I don't necessarily care who, but I do want to go with Infantry because you are directly on watch. I would like you to maybe assess a situation since you know a thing that might be happening today.
I would also like to assess the situation.
I thought you might.
My dice would,
That is superior.
Okay, thank God I've got a +3. That is a 9.
Nice. So yeah, give me one off that list. What here can I use to blank? What here is the biggest threat? What here is in the greatest danger? Who here is most vulnerable? Or how could we best end this quickly?
I'm gonna say what here is the biggest threat?
As the bidding starts, you can see a strapping young fellow who was seated next to Augustus van der Scheck, lift himself up out of his chair, and he's kind of like loosening a cravat that was around his neck. And as he does, he is growing substantially. He's kind of moved out of sight, off towards the rear, so that not everyone realizes this. But he is definitely bulking up and starting to, grow fur. So something's going on there. And you can see, his teeth starting to, lengthen into fangs. And at the same time, behind you, you hear that telltale pop of Professor Paradox telejaunting into a scene. So you've kind of got 2 answers there.
Am I nearby to Lady Goliath?
Yeah, probably.
I think I'm going to, try to signal to get her attention and point off towards the man rapidly transforming into a werewolf. Just be like, ma'am, that seems more your style. I've got the crazy man and him over there.
I tell you what, let me describe what Paradox looks like at this point, because this is a different Paradox than we've seen yet. Like I said, there's lots of him. So this Professor Paradox is wearing a very low V-cut shirt that comes all the way down to his navel.
Oh my god.
Skin tight at the hips. They are white, probably some sort of cotton, but they're clinging in a way that you're not familiar with. This is a spandex cotton blend. These are bell-bottom pants with sequins all the way down to his wide bottoms. He's a little bit taller than last time you saw him because he is in fact wearing platform shoes.
Do they have fish in them?
I was about to say, yes.
Thank God.
They each have, a very distressed-looking goldfish in the heel. And he is, in fact, wearing a huge watch on a chain around his neck.
Oh my god!
You've done it! You've found the ultimate Professor Paradox!
Oh my god!
This is my final form!
What an icon!
He is still wearing a top hat and monocle, mind you.
Of course! I have taste, do I not?
Right? So that's what Professor Paradox looks like at this point. And as he pops in, the werewolf fully werewolfs. Lady Goliath kind of nods at you and very quickly starts moving through the crowd, who is kind of starting to get a little bit distressed at this point on their own. So I'd like to get over to Norma right quick, because that just happened.
Yeah, Norma sees that, and she has the little Spidey sense squiggle lines over her head. And she sort of takes a quick look around the room to see if she can sort of slip out one of the doors in the back and change real quick. As she's doing this, does she spot Eliza?
Sure. I'm not really known for being conspicuous.
Yeah, that's why I figured it would probably be easy. She also sees Infantry there. But of course, she's not in her silence garb right now, so she's just some random brunette standing amongst the crowd. So yeah, it's sort of hard to tell that Norma is the silence because she's in Norma mode. So she sees you two, and she sees Eliza specifically, and she has she gets a little smile on her face for just half a second, and then zwoops out the doorway and like checks to make sure the coast is clear, and she throws on her overcoat and her hat and her mask, and the silence is here, and she sort of like sticks the bag behind a pedestal or something. They have those in these kinds of environments.
Sure.
Pedestals, yeah.
Yeah,
it had, you know, just a pedestal hanging around in this museum type situation, and then slips back into the room.
Nice. And I think at this point I also want to get a reaction from Eliza. So what do you do at this point?
Well, Eliza is very much, like, the word I'm going to use is, like, overstimulated. Like, she's not really sure where to look first, because she's like, oh, it's my father. And also, oh, it's Professor Paradox, and he's living his best life. And oh, it's Derek, and he's so handsome and werewolfy. And also, oh, is that Norma? Because, I know I mentioned this during character creation, but I don't think we recorded that. Eliza mentioned that the silence was tied for her number one favorite celebrity.
She mentions this to the silence in episode 1.
Yes, no, I know that, but I'm saying I didn't mention who the other person who that's tied with is, and it is Norma, the woman who plays the silence's girlfriend on the Silence radio show. So Eliza is like whirling in like little circles trying to figure out what needs her immediate attention. And you know what? Eliza sees Lady Goliath and Infantry, and Eliza's like, oh, they'll at least take care of the opening part of this. I'm gonna find Norma. And she runs after Norma.
Uh-oh.
Oh no.
Oh no.
Oh, Norma.
So you run out. Oh, this is good. It is what it is. You run out the door. You see Norma mid-change. Norma, oh my god. What do you do?
Well, thank God I wasn't in a state of undress because I already had my trousers on. Norma looks back at Highwire / Eliza, and there's this sort of moment of like panic, like do I do this? Do I not do this? Do I try to like play it off like, oh, nothing to see here? And then she takes the mask and she pulls it down over her face and looks at Highwire.
I think that definitely does trigger the mask. So which label are you embodying right now?
Yeah, so I think that I'm going to be embodying Savior.
Okay.
For those of us listening at home, you wear a mask and hide your real identity. You embody Savior while wearing your mask. Once per session, you can affirm with your heroic or secret identity to switch your mundane with Savior. So my Savior is now to +3.
But also, when you reveal your secret identity to someone who didn't know it already, you mark potential.
Potential! That fills my track!
Nice. And since this is the last episode of this, go ahead and take an advancement, because we're not going to get to it next session.
Yeah. Alright, so for advancement, I'm going to take another move from my playbook. I'm going to pick Game Face. When you commit yourself to saving someone or defeating a terrible enemy, mark a condition and take +1 ongoing to all rolls in direct pursuit of that goal.
That's pretty dang good.
That sounds pretty helpful for the situation we're about to get ourselves into. So yeah, Norma looks at Eliza and then pulls the mask down over her face and becomes the silence.
Nice. So let's get back inside right quick, because stuff is definitely progressing. So at this point, Lady Goliath has come up towards Derek, who has now gone full-on werewolf, and he has got, like, the glowing wolf eyes, and he lets out this, like, unearthly howl, and people just start freaking the hell out and screaming and trying to rush towards the front and away from this giant werewolf. And Lady Goliath wheels back and says, "Oh, I'm sorry, but you're being a public nuisance," and slugs him straight in the chest and through the wall.
Oh my god!
You two out in the alleyway do hear this, like, crumble of bricks, and you see a werewolf fly out the wall past you and impact the wall opposite. While inside, Infantry, Professor Paradox has slid his way on up to stand next to you and kind of looks over at you and goes, "Well, what's it gonna be, Roger? I really don't want to do this the hard way, but I see that look in your eye, and I feel like we're friends now. I just came from your grandson's reception. So, I feel like I'm part of your family right now. But I know that look. I think you're thinking about something that we're both going to regret here."
With all due respect, I don't think I'm going to regret this. And Infantry just punches him.
Nice. Go ahead and directly engage a threat.
Good. Excellent. I love it.
Alright, that is a 10.
Nice. So go ahead and pick 2 off that list.
First off, I will resist or avoid their blows.
Fair.
And let's see. I think I want to impress, surprise, or frighten the opposition, because we were just casually having a conversation, and then I'm punching him as hard as I can.
Yeah, I think he is definitely a bit frightened by this. How hard are you hitting him? Because you've got bionic limbs.
Yeah, like, I'm not gonna, shatter his face bones or anything like that. It's just enough to send him flying a little bit, and just, infantry is clearly not... Well, wait, what's our language cap on this podcast?
You do what you want.
Okay. Infantry's not fucking around.
Sure. So, yeah, he goes kind of flying a little bit as people are fleeing from, the superhero fight that's happening literally on the other side of the room. And I think he sort of hits one of the glass cases that hasn't been opened yet and kind of bounces off it, not shatters it, but just bounces a little bit. And he kind of rubs his jaw and he looks over at you. After all the wedding presents I've given your family over the years, this is how you repay me. He sort of dusts himself off and stands up. And, all right, fine, I guess we're doing this the hard way. And he grabs the giant clock on his chest and spins the dials. And all around you, people just freeze. There's still brick dust floating down from the ceiling, and it just stops in midair. And you find it very difficult to move. So let's get back outside into that alleyway right quick. Werewolf just happened, and you can see Lady Goliath starting to stalk out from inside, and then she just slows down and pauses mid-step, 1 foot up in the air. What do you do?
Lady Goliath?
Yeah, she is just frozen.
So everything is frozen except for us, including Lady Goliath, who is presumably mid-Superman punch on this werewolf's face.
So the things that are inside the building, which you can see through the hole in the wall she just punched, are suspended in time. The werewolf that is out in this alleyway is not, nor are you. Basically, nothing outside that room is frozen. But it looks like just about everything inside is.
Well, first I'm going to say, the silence, we're going to have a lot to talk about in I don't know, 2-3 minutes. But first I have to check on a friend of mine, and I'm going to run over to the werewolf, and I'm going to say, Derek, are you okay? It's me, your new best friend, Eliza.
In the background, the silence is gesturing at this what the hell, man?
Werewolves can be friends too, the silence.
I think I want you to comfort or support.
I'm gonna comfort or support this werewolf.
Support that werewolf!
Because you can tell that this took a bit out of him. He is knocked for a doozy.
That is a 10, so...
Nice.
I'm getting all my good rolls this time.
So let's just start with what you can do on a 10+. Do you want to add a team to the pool? Because right now you've just got the one standard. Or do you want to clear a condition?
I'll clear a condition. I had one. I had insecure, so I'll clear that. I think Eliza is too excited right now to be insecure. There's too much exciting stuff going on.
And he kind of shakes his head and starts to kind of stand up from the rubble that he finds himself in. And he's starting to dust himself off. And he looks over at you and he goes, "Oh." And he kind of blushes a little bit. "I'm sorry, I wasn't intending you to get involved in this."
Oh.
I'm just fine, thank you very much.
Please, I'm always involved in everything. It's kind of my deal.
The silence, what are you doing at this point?
The silence is watching this unfold an extremely what the fuck sort of thing, but also the werewolf isn't trying to kill Eliza or him, so he's gonna kind of let that situation sort itself out. What he does is he looks in the building, and he picks up a chunk of rubble from where Derek the werewolf was blasted through the wall, and he chucks it into the building, specifically to see if it stops in time or not.
So as you chuck it in, as it crosses the threshold of that building, it definitely slows down, but it looks like whatever happened in there, it's not an ongoing thing, so it'll probably make you slower if you go in there, but not stop you entirely.
Okay.
At that point, Derek kind of looks over at Eliza and looks in there, and he kind of lets out a little growl, and he goes, "Damn it." And he kind of looks back over at Eliza, and he pulls a pocket watch out of the front of his pea coat, and he looks at the time. He looks back at you, and he goes, "I'm almost out of time here." And he starts to rush back in. Let's get back inside right quick. So, Infantry. The world has stopped, and you are still conscious of what's going on. Paradox is very calmly just kind of walking over towards the Byzantium clock and sort of considering it. He hasn't actually touched it yet. It looks like he's trying to figure something out. And you are moving, but you are moving like molasses. So, like, it's going to take a great effort for you to actually reach him in any kind of considerable time. But the question is, what are you trying to do?
I think... I'm not sure. While I'm, like, trying to run forward towards him, I think I might be, if you don't mind, trying to assess the situation. Maybe get my surroundings a little bit.
Yeah, no, I think you've got plenty of time to do that, so go ahead and roll for it.
That is a 6 on the dice, plus my 3 superior is a 9.
Nice. So you know what? You are engaging Professor Paradox, who you did see as the biggest threat last time, so I think that +1 actually does carry over. So we'll give you the 10 on that, so go ahead and ask 2 of those questions.
Okay, the first one is, what here can I use to basically get between Professor Paradox and his goal, if that makes sense?
Yeah.
I can't get there in time. What here can I use to sort of stop him?
Okay. You do see, as you can kind of move your eyes a little better than the rest of you because they don't take a whole lot of effort, and you can tell that this is not necessarily like purely a time travel thing. But you do see the silence throw that like half a brick in through the wall of the building, and you see it slow down but not stop. So anything that comes in this room at this point is, while slowed down, not stopped entirely. So in theory, if you can communicate, what's going on to someone outside this room, they could definitely help you.
All right. And sort of half related to that, how can we best end this quickly?
So you've seen Paradox a couple of times now, and every time, he himself is not a physically imposing villain. He's just a guy with some gadgets.
He's just a nerd.
Right? He is just a nerd with some gadgets.
I'm a very cool nerd.
He's just a nerd with very little groin coverage at the moment.
Yeah, and all of his actual power comes from those gadgets. And in this case, he's got a giant clock strapped to his chest on a chain around his neck. So if you take that away from him, he is basically powerless.
All right. I am trying to figure out what Infantry would be trying to communicate. Because I know there's people outside of this sort of time dilution bubble, right?
Yeah, you can at least see, at least the werewolf is starting to come back in. Whether that's comforting to you or not, who knows? Is the silence also moving back in the room? Is that something that we can see out the...
He's sort of, like, I think the silence is sort of, like, conferring with Eliza what she's gonna do. Like, are we gonna crash this party again? Or what are we gonna do here?
So Infantry, at that point, you've got some information. You can move, it is just very, very slow. So what are you doing?
I'm assuming if I talk, it would also be very slow?
Yeah, but sound moves much faster than you do.
I'm going to yell over towards the alleyway, just be like, I'm trying to think of the quickest way to sort of paraphrase my thoughts. I think he's just going to yell out, projectiles, quickly.
Great, I love throwing rocks.
At that point, Paradox kind of looks over at you and just sort of scowls. And he looks and he kind of like shakes the clock on his chest and he goes, this thing must be on the fritz. You're supposed to be stuck tight. Outside in the alleyway, what are you doing?
Well, the silence never passes up a golden opportunity to chuck rocks at nerds.
Excuse me. I think we can do this with a little more style. And I am going...
When Highwire is saying this to the silence has his leg cocked up like a baseball pitcher.
So
and he stops like that.
I am going to... let's see. I did juggling balls already. What's something else?
Big ol' slingshot.
That's not really a circus thing.
You said the circus has everything!
Oh, I know what I'm gonna do. So, somehow, through the magic of my umbrella, which I didn't say I didn't have. You know that thing that they do where there are the plates and you spin them on a stick?
Yes.
Yeah, so I have one of those, but literally I'm just chucking I spin the plate on the top of the very tall stick, and then I throw it into the air, catch the plate, and throw this plate at Professor Paradox.
Porcelain frisbee.
Okay, directly engage a threat, and I don't know whether I want you to roll high or low here. This could be good either way.
I just want to remind everybody that we have a team in the pool if it comes to this.
We do, and we're about to have more.
Oh, that's a 7.
Okay, pick one off of that list.
So I am going to create an opportunity for my allies, because I think that's what I was trying to do.
Sure. And what opportunity specifically are you trying to create?
I'm trying to, hit the clock, because I think I can kind of figure out that that's what is keeping people from moving well. So I'm going to try to hit the clock and see if that fixes the time issue.
Okay, I like that. So yeah, you hit the clock, which Paradox was kind of shaking, right? So you hit it, and your plate just tinks, and it kind of spins, and everything in the room starts moving very, very quickly. So you go kind of in the other direction for a minute. And as we come back out of that, Paradox is kind of off balance, Infantry's off balance, Lady Goliath is definitely off balance, and Derek, the werewolf, has bounded into the room and is just about to raise his claw at Paradox. And I want to enter battle as a team right quick, because we're now all performing teamwork. So we got 2 to the pool, which takes us up to 3 normal. Who do we think is in control of this fight right now?
I would say Infantry.
Okay. Infantry, do you have influence over your other 2 teammates?
I don't believe that I do. Or maybe I do. I don't honestly... I've lost my influence somehow, I'm not sure.
Well, that's fine. Eliza, the Silence, does Infantry have influence over the 2 of you?
I'm pretty sure he has influence over me.
I don't have it written down who has influence over me.
Well, let me put this another way. Do you want to give him influence over you?
Sure.
Yeah.
Because you can do that at any time, so... Awesome. Do any of you mistrust the rest of you? I can't see that at this point.
I do not mistrust anybody.
And I don't think you're ill-prepared or off balance, so I don't think I'm going to worry about that too much. So at this point, we have 4 team in the pool. And with that, so Infantry, you had a very brief moment where time went really, really fast, and you are now very off your balance and feeling kind of nauseous, but you do see a flippin' werewolf about to maybe take off Professor Paradox's face. What do?
I'm torn. I hate to have to do this, but werewolf attack is not really in my wheelhouse. I think I'm gonna try to defend Professor Paradox.
Okay.
I want to take him in, not dismember him.
Okay. So yeah, go ahead and roll plus Savior.
I have some of that. That is a 10.
Nice. On a hit, you definitely keep him safe. What does that look like on the page? How are you defending him?
Yeah, I'm, now that my legs are working again, I'm basically just, turbocharging them and more or less throwing myself between the werewolf and Professor Paradox.
Pick one off of that list. Do you want to add a team to the pool, clear a condition, or take influence over Professor Paradox?
I think I'm gonna take influence over him.
Yes! That's what I was hoping you'd say.
To be fair, he has been to several weddings in your family and at least one reception, so...
I love this guy. I care so much about what he thinks.
And he kind of looks up at you and he goes, there's the Roger I know. And Lady Goliath at this point was mid-swing when this all happened, and she has kind of stumbled and fallen against a pillar, and she's now shaking off of that, and she turns around and she sees this werewolf thing happening. I want to get to Eliza though right quick. How are you reacting to this? Because I don't know if you were expecting Derek to flat out attack Paradox like that.
Yeah, no, I wasn't. I'm going to run over to Derek. Derek, can't we just talk this out?
The Silence, what are you doing?
The Silence follows Eliza and sort of skids to a halt because he was expecting to jump into this to punch someone. And it appears that we're trying to talk things out with the werewolf, which was, again, not the direction that he anticipated this going in. He's gonna kind of do the fighting game idle motion.
Okay.
And wait until he can reliably throw himself at something and hit it.
So at this point, Eliza, I would like you to provoke someone susceptible to your words. So
Sure.
It seems like you're trying to get Derek to maybe talk this out.
Well, that is 9 minus 1 is 8.
Well, we do have some team in the pool, so in theory, if Infantry and the Silence can both help here, we could bring that up if we want to, or we could take the 8.
Well, that's up to Infantry and the Silence.
Yep.
Infantry definitely wants to end this without dismembering the nerd.
Okay.
Yeah, the Silence will lend a team.
Okay, and how will they help?
Like, I think that as Infantry threw himself between the werewolf and the, what was it, Dr. Paradox?
Professor
Paradox.
He's got a PhD.
I love alliteration!
As he, throws himself between the werewolf and Professor Paradox, he, grabs hold of the werewolf's arm and sort of, stops it from scratching down across his face. And he's just like, hold on there, big guy. Isn't there something with a little less disembowelment we can figure out here?
Nice. And the Silence, how do you assist in this?
The Silence sort of, gets himself between the werewolf and Professor Paradox, but his hands are kind of up in a sort of I don't want any trouble kind of stance. If you're not gonna attack me, I'm not gonna attack you. Maybe we can end this peacefully.
Sure. So, yeah, I think that'll definitely do it. So that takes us down to 2 in the pool. And Derek the werewolf kind of has his claw up, and you can tell he's thinking about it for a second, even with Infantry holding on to him and the Silence there. And then he just kind of snarls and shifts back down into a human person and turns away. But as he does, you see, I think Eliza's in the best position to see this. You see just a look of recognition cross Paradox's face. He looks shocked, at which point he doesn't say anything. He just smacks the little button on top of the clock on his chest and just poofs. He's just gone. So, yeah, Eliza, whoever this werewolf is, Paradox recognized him and it shocked him so much he just abandoned his plan. And Derek, hearing that pop, just closes his eyes and takes a breath. You have no idea what you've just done.
I usually don't, Derek.
He heads over. At this point, the people who are attending this gallery opening have long since fled, and he sits down in one of the, dust-strewn chairs. Lady Goliath is kind of, confusedly still got her hands up I thought a fight was happening. And he looks over. That was my best chance to take him out for good. And now I don't think there's any stopping what's about to happen. And he pulls the watch out of his pocket, and he kind of looks at it. And we can see on the page that it has stopped ticking. And he kind of closes his eyes again and sticks it back in there. There's always another chance. And he pushes the button on top of that, and he too disappears.
A time wolf?
The werewolf is a time traveler too?
Yeah, hold on. I've been waiting three full episodes to say this. He's a wenwolf.
Oh my god. Oh my god. Oh my god.
And I want to get a very quick reaction of these 3 characters in this sort of rubble-strewn, otherwise very fancy space. The Byzantium clock is still here, and it is still turning. How do they close out this episode and this particular issue on your end? What's the last kind of scene we get with these characters?
Well, I have one thing that I know I need to do. So, well, first of all, I'm going to just say, you 2 would not believe how many of Viv's boyfriends this happens to. Anyway, the Silence. Just so you know, I just want to let you know that if you'd like to maybe go to the malt shop with me after we're done cleaning up here, I'd love to talk to you about my other favorite celebrity, who's tied for first. That wonderful actress who plays your girlfriend on the radio. I'd love to have a conversation with you about her at some point.
The Silence has little blush lines coming through his mask, and he sort of draws himself up and sort of shakes his shoulders out and straightens his hat, and then he looks over at Infantry how are you doing, boss?
Infantry looks at his 2 teammates, and he seems deep in thought for a panel. Then he says, well, not exactly sure when it's gonna happen, but apparently sometime I'm getting married, and I think the 2 of you might want to show up. And I think that we get the panel, and on the lapel of his suit jacket, is one of those blue flowers that was left in his kitchen.
Oh my god,
it.
Andy!
That is so good.
Masks: A New Generation is written for Magpie Games by Brendan Conway. It is made of plenty rugged pills, patsies, and pallies, all cute as a bug's ear in spandex. It's real kippy, so shake a leg and drop some lettuce on it, you pip. Infantry is played by Andy. You can find him and his many other projects on Twitter at AndyLion92. The Silence / Norma Kelly is played by Lee of the Rollout podcast. You can find them on Twitter at It's Hamhocks. Eliza Highwire is played by Evan of the Rollout podcast. You can find him on Twitter at Uncle Petunio. Lowdown is that Apex City is GM'd by Jeremy, which same scrub also writes the music and edits this podcast. Our album art was provided by Ash Brent. Find them on Twitter at Cinder_Brent, on Instagram at Brent.ash, and on Tumblr at Kimmons. Find us on Stitcher, iTunes, Spotify, or whatever clip joint you prefer, Cinder Dick. Follow us on Twitter at Apex City Cast. Thank you for listening, and we'll dig you next issue.
So Infantry gets home later that evening, and you've still got, dust all over your suit jacket, and you've got that little flower in your lapel. And as you enter, you hear this telltale pop from your kitchen, and I'm pretty sure you know who's in there by now.
I've got an idea. Infantry just walks straight over. He's like, I'm getting real tired of dealing with this.
And as you walk in, this is a very different Paradox than you've seen, because you didn't see the very old Paradox who died at the beginning of this. You just saw the monster that happened afterwards. This is an honestly ancient-looking Professor Paradox. He is older than anyone you have ever seen, or really older than anyone you think should be able to exist. And he is wearing all sorts of machinery that look to be keeping him mostly alive. He's got a little tube in his nose. He's got something on his chest that you can tell is making like the cardio rhythm, like the thump 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 kind of thing. And there are just clocks and wristwatches just all up and down his left arm. And he reaches out an arm and he grabs you by the shoulder. Roger! Oh, thank God I finally got back. Roger! You have to stop me. You have to stop me.